Right, if you feel comfortable, please feel free to put your name and where you are from in the chat. Otherwise, we've started to record. Let's get started. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm Barbara Paxton. I am the director of BoardStrong. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to strengthen the governance of nonprofit boards of directors. We provide nonprofit board recruitment, placement, training, and consultation. We also have an online board recruitment platform at www.boardstrong.org that connects organizations to talented and diverse board candidates from outside their networks. As you already have noticed, this roundtable will be recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording later this week. And please use the chat box for any questions for the panelists. We'll have time for questions at the end. Before we start, I would like to thank our sponsor, Counsel Services Plus, insurance solutions for today's nonprofits. And let's get started. Let me introduce our panelists. We have Sierra Blackstone, co-founder and COO of the Black Women Investors Network and junior board chair of Power Play NYC. Sarah Aiken, managing director of the Pink Agenda, whose board is made up of young professionals, and Andrew Young, general counsel of Solidus Link, sorry, Andrew, and past co-chair pro bono advisory council of the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. You'll also see Charlie Owens, who's the membership manager at the New York Council of Nonprofits, and our little tech guru here. So let's start by asking the panelists to introduce themselves in alphabetical order. Sierra, you want to go first?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Blackstone. I'm very excited to be here with you all today. I have the privilege of being the junior board chair of Power Play. Power Play is a nonprofit based in New York City that works with young girls to introduce them to the world of sports and use that as a vehicle to make them physically, emotionally, and mentally stronger. I've served as Power Play's junior board chair for the past 3 years after being just a general junior board member for the past 2 years. And I'm excited to tell you all what it takes to be not only a builder of a junior board, but have it run sustainably and efficiently.
Oh, thank you. Sarah.
Hello, everybody. I am Sarah Ecken. I'm the managing director of the Pink Agenda, which is a nonprofit organization focused on raising money and awareness for breast cancer research amongst young professionals. We were founded in 2007 and joined into a strategic partnership with the Breast Cancer Research Foundation in 2012, where we are able to fund the brightest minds in scientific research. I've been with the Breast Cancer Research and the Pink Agenda for 8.5 years now, and it has been a privilege to be overseeing the Pink Agenda as an organization for the past 4 years in my role.
Thank you. Marvelous. Andrew?
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with everyone. I am on the Pro Bono Advisory Council, which is the junior board for New York Lawyers. We call it NOPI because it's such a long name. It was founded in 1976, really to advance equality and civil rights in New York City. Its focus really is on health justice, disability rights, and environmental justice in particular, and takes a multi-layered approach. It's a legal organization that does pro bono work, but not just pro bono and not just impact litigation, but actually tries to wrap around legislative advocacy and public awareness together. So the organization really partners with the private bar. It was founded by a number of law firms, and so the larger board is actually quite large and has representatives from several dozen of the leading law firms here in New York. I've been on the junior board for nearly 10 years, and about half the time was co-chair, just rolled off earlier this year.
Thank you so much, guys. This is awesome. All right. Well, why don't we start out by asking you to tell us a little bit about the activities of your junior board and how you feel that it really works to attract younger people or younger professionals. Who wants to start? Sarah, do you want to start?
Yeah,
I'm just going to go around
100%.
yeah.
So PowerPlay's junior board is focused on two core areas. One is fundraising. So we have our own annual junior board fundraiser that's completely led and organized by us, where we invite our friends, colleagues, as well as, of course, PowerPlay staff. So we set an annual fundraising goal for that. And then we also support PowerPlay's broader fundraising efforts. So our annual golf tournament, our annual gala, those are all things where we try to leverage our junior board's access to be able to create sponsorship opportunities for PowerPlay or otherwise just invite friends and family. And the second area that we focus on is the hands-on volunteering. So Power Plays participants are young girls from ages 7 to 18. So over the past couple of years, we've engaged this audience in a couple ways, whether it be speaker series, meeting with the girls, whether it be going to the annual rugby tournament or helping lead other activations. We really enjoy being able to have that hands-on, one-on-one contact with the girls who participate.
That's awesome. Andrew?
Our junior board is actually quite unique. Everyone is a lawyer and historically from one of the member law firms. And our board is really focused, the junior board focused around fundraising. There's an annual trivia night where we have a blast, but also invite other attorneys from typically the firms or companies that we work at. And we've been exploring increasing link ups with New York Lawyers main board as well, and helping them to think through, from a more younger professional perspective, what are the ways in which we can engage potential donors and future board members and also pro bono service providers in the best manner. And so part of the other real core part of the board is raising awareness as well within the firms and among legal friends, which are the largest participants in it. Many of the junior board members actually have direct pro bono experience through New York Lawyers, and so that's just another touch point.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about your board.
Sure, happy to. So as the mission's primary focus is fundraising, we really do look at our board, our leadership council, and our volunteers, which are the core group that runs the organization. We're only a two-person staff, so we heavily rely on our volunteers for all of our fundraising efforts, primarily through events. Throughout the country, we host about 40 events annually. And they are our boots on the ground fundraisers, event planners, creators, concept creators. We really rely on the volunteers, our board, our leadership council, to be the creative innovators of how we can continue to raise more money annually. In addition to raise awareness, we try to bring in educational components and awareness components to all the events that we do, but always tying it back to our fundraising efforts.
Great, thank you. So one of the things when we were briefing on this panel that we talked about a little bit is what the need to be somewhat more flexible with a junior board, because you are working with young professionals whose time is not always their own. Would someone like to jump in and talk a little bit about how you handle that?
I'm happy to get started.
There you go.
When we're in the recruitment process, I lay out our requirements, our time requirements, right from the start. Saying these are the amount of meetings we have, board meetings, committee meetings, setting their expectations, ensuring that they are able to meet them as much as possible. Of course, flexibility is key, and the flexibility comes back to open communication. If people aren't able to commit at that moment to what they're doing, we do just ask them to communicate. Communication is key, that we can find somebody to support when one board member isn't able to support due to other obligations. But I always say, just let us know. We're here to support you. If you're committed to our mission, we're committed to you.
Andrew, you smiled when I asked that question. You want to chime in?
Yeah, well, as part of a profession that accounts for its time in 6-minute increments, your question has particular significance and relevance. And particularly for junior associates, many of them are at big law firms in New York, which are notoriously demanding on time. And so this is a very meaningful challenge. I think there are a number of imperfect solutions that I think in aggregate as a portfolio really help address this. So certainly setting expectations up front, but I think it's also mutual and understanding that it is not um, that any failure to show up isn't some sort of horrible breach in obligations and that you're still part of the community. It helps to have a larger board. We have several dozen on the junior board. Obviously not everyone can attend every meeting, but at any given point there's typically around 20 people that do attend our quarterly meetings, which is fantastic. And obviously for our marquee fundraiser, almost everyone participates. And then from a former co-chair perspective, the fact that we have co-chairs instead of just a single chair really made a difference. So we typically have two co-chairs, and the ability to have just two people, like one cover for the other, in case there's a court matter or something that comes up has really been beneficial. So I'd say those are really key. And then NILP staff has been just incredibly thoughtful in how they help tee up meetings to make them more efficient, how they help prepare the board chairs to really run through things and to equip them with just the relevant information. So I would say that those couple of things really help to navigate kind of the young professional not always being 100% available issue.
And Sierra, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I would say with Power Play as junior board, we choose or we go the route of choose your own adventure in the sense that when we get an applicant for the junior board, we like to connect with them and understand their connection to our broader mission and how they could use their skill set, whether it be one that they've used in their professional career or through personal hobbies, to really help further our impact. So for some people on the junior board, they may not be able to contribute to every fundraiser, but perhaps they can work with PowerPlay's staff to help build out the website or do other types of engagements. So we try to be really flexible in the way that you can get involved with the junior board. And then also just understand that, especially with the fundraising side, there may be sometimes like hard, like difficulties in raising certain amounts of money. But perhaps, maybe it won't come this month, maybe it'll come next month, maybe it'll come in 2 quarters. We just try to be very understanding and also acknowledge that people are bringing a different skill set as well as a kind of different network to the organization.
I think that's great. So flexibility is key in setting expectations as well. Um, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think for our audience, probably that's a really great thing to remember when you're thinking about setting up and sustaining a junior board, that you really have to have that flexibility. Why don't someone who wants to jump in and tell us a little bit about the role of the staff in your junior board, the interaction, and sort of how you balance your leadership with what kind of support they give. Sarah, you already mentioned the staff. Well, actually, Andrew, you mentioned the staff too. Who wants to, and Sarah is staff. So,
I'm
all
happy
right.
to start off.
Yeah, there you go.
So with Power Play and the junior board, it's kind of ebbed and flowed. So the first year or so of my time as the chair, we didn't have a specific staff member that was charged with, kind of overseeing the junior board's efforts. So that led to, me working with Power Play CEO, but really trying to be agile in the amount of outreach that I did with the staff, just given that their day job is running the nonprofit. So in those time periods, we were just a little bit more, hey, this is the event we want to do, or this is the type of program we want to do, get final sign off, but kind of proceed on our own. But now we actually have Power Play's staff that we have a staff member that's dedicated to overseeing the junior board again, it's still a little bit of a hands-off, just they attend the junior board meetings that we have once a quarter, and they help us with any administrative things that we need. So getting a fundraising page up and running, making sure that flyers for events are posted on the Instagram, but I would say still a bit hands-off. And we like to really see our junior board members take ownership. So helping come up with different plans for programs. And then 99% of the time, the staff is okay and excited with it. So we never really have any friction there.
Great, Andrew?
And NILPI's sort of on the other end of the spectrum. And I think it actually works well for NILPI and its junior board being a lot of more junior practitioners. The junior board is much more staff driven. The board really, and in particular, there are like 2 or 3 staff members at NILPI that have just been fantastic in providing continuity and really teeing up agendas and really helping the co-chairs really grow into the role before giving them a little more ability to like freestyle, and then really convening the meetings, creating materials and graphics for distribution, whether it's for internal consumption or for us to share with third parties, and really, connecting the junior board, with current staff and programs to be sort of a sounding board for how some of the programming evolves as well. So I would say, on the spectrum, NLP is certainly much more staff driven and actually has been fantastic in that sense.
Yeah, right. And what you mentioned, I believe they also use you to inform their work, right? In terms of their pro bono projects, et cetera. So you're a resource for what their direction is as well. Sarah, you mentioned like formal meetings. Does your junior board have regular formal meetings? Is it more ad hoc? Sarah? No.
Oh, sorry,
Junior-
Sierra, me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have formal meetings once a quarter, but just given I would say the age range of the people on the junior board, we do a lot of just iMessage, group chatting, and then if we need people, like perhaps we'll hop on a quick Teams or Zooms call, but we keep it pretty informal, and that seems to work.
Great. Sarah, what do you think?
Oh, because we are a governing board, we have 5 actual board meetings a year plus an annual meeting as well. Everybody is required to sit on one of our fundraising committees, everybody on our board and our leadership council, and those meet on a monthly basis. So we are very structured in our meetings. We have attendance for the board, specific board meetings specifically. Attendance requirements, and we have to have quorum to have board meetings. So
That's cool. Yeah.
really
Yeah, I
teaching
mean,
real nonprofit governance in our work.
Right. I mean, I think that's a question that I have for the other two, for everybody is, when we say to young professionals when they join junior boards that not only will they give back to a cause that they care about, but that there will be leadership opportunities and ways that they can grow that will help them in their professional lives. So, can would any of you like to sort of speak to how that works with your junior board? Sarah, you've already mentioned that you're actually teaching them to be board members or giving them the opportunity to step up and be board members. But for the two of you who are co-chairs, sort of how did you work your way up the leadership? How do they create those opportunities for you? Andrew?
It's I guess my experience is a little unique. At NILPI, the junior board does not typically elect its co-chairs for subsequent terms. Um, there usually is a series of conversation between staff and junior board members who are particularly engaged, and certainly I think starting with just regular attendance, but also enthusiasm for the organization's mission, and willingness to really continue to step up. And so that's how I became a co-chair. And as far as the development of junior board members into potential board, I think a key component of being a board member at any organization, there's both the operational and strategic portion, but also really the fundraising and awareness. And I think so much of the board, what is required of boards of nonprofits for people that aren't actual staff really is on the fundraising side. And so it's lawyers are not great at fundraising, and this is just an awesome opportunity for lawyers to start to exercise those muscles from a junior board perspective. And so that's really been a lot of the focus for our junior board. And not everyone grows well, but it's a great opportunity for people to try to make the ask, to really, share the good, share the news about the organization and be able to communicate thoughtfully, like why it's on a valuable mission and how other people can participate.
That's great. But there is that other component that is not fundraising and awareness. It's some of the advice. Do you think that's critical for junior board members? Or is that more icing on the cake? Andrew?
Um, I think it depends on the particular junior board member and the organization. For us, because we are like we're made up of lawyers, and so much of the organization's work is litigation directly or related through legislative advocacy. um, there is more substantive expertise that any particular junior board member can bring. And so for each of our quarterly meetings, there's a staff, typically a director level staff person, who presents on some of the recent initiatives. And there's very thoughtful and sometimes robust back and forth with, okay, well, what do you know about this judge? Or, what do you think about this particular litigation strategy, or where we are procedurally in this? And I think that is certainly of benefit to I mean, NILPI has outside counsel as well, who can provide lots of, great advice, but to have just an additional sounding board on the programmatic side has been great. I know that junior boards for other organizations, like there's more diversity of professional background, and I would
Yeah.
imagine that people can bring all sorts of substantive expertise, whether it's accounting, consulting, medical, or healthcare, or education. I just have, it's just a little different at NILPI.
Yeah, every organization is different. I think that's what is kind of critical when you think about these things, is if you are an organization and you have, a board, as Sarah said, they have a job description, they're governing entities. But your junior board, you can feel free to create based on what your organization needs. So Sarah, go back to that question of sort of how does your junior board create leadership or other rewarding opportunities for your members?
Sure. So I think it goes back to figuring out the ways that people want to contribute to Power Play. So a lot of our junior board members were athletes growing up, and given Power Play sports focus, that's something that we often try to kind of hone in different ways. So for example, having junior board members lead clinics for the girls, having junior board members set up different programs with our sponsors. So for example, the NBA, or the different sports organizations. We try to create opportunities for junior board members to lead those and give back in a way that's kind of meaningful in that sense. And then in terms of ultimately going to become a board member, that's a process that I would say happens over time. Given the kind of fundraising expectation difference between being a junior board member versus being a board member, sometimes it just takes kind of the natural progression of one's career into a more seasoned professional before it makes sense for them to join the actual board. But at the point at which that time comes, then we have, I would say, broader organizational conversations, ultimately leading to a conversation with Power Play CEO, who will ultimately give the kind of yes, no, or maybe wait a couple of months to a year.
Yeah, that's great. That makes sense. So how do you find your junior board members? Andrew, I think you said it's mostly your member firms. Yeah, Sarah, how about you?
It's a lot of word of mouth within the breast cancer community for us, because our organization is so niche in what we do, but we also promote on social media, in our newsletters. We make sure we're getting the word out that we want people to get involved. We couldn't do it without our volunteers, so a little bit of everything.
That's okay. Sierra?
Yeah, from Power Play's side, we're very lucky to work with an organization called Youth Inc. And then Youth Inc. has connections throughout different corporate organizations, and they have been a really good feeder organization to refer us or to have potential junior board members refer to us. That's actually how I got involved with Power Play. And then now that we are growing our junior board, we really value having, I would say, friend of a friend referrals. So for example, if we have a junior board member who may be rolling off, we always like to ask, well, okay, do you have a friend who may want to join? And we're actively building our junior board. So over the last, I would say, year to 18 months, we've added 5 new members, each who brought, I would say, a pretty unique skill set. So that's something that we're actively excited about and really trying to press on the outreach front.
Cool. And do you have a limited number of members? Do you have term limits, or is it sort of everybody's welcome who wants to pitch in?
Yeah, for Power Play, I mean, the more the merrier. We are very excited about having new junior board members. I would say an important thing for us is just mission alignment. So understanding if there's a broader connection in that person's life to elements of Power Play's mission, whether it be sports, the mentoring of young girls and women. Those are things that we really like to see. But assuming someone checks those boxes and they're comfortable with, you know, the other requirements, so give, get, as well as physical time volunteering with the girls, we are all for it.
That's great. Though you mentioned you were a little flexible with your give get, right? Based on what people can do outside of giving money.
Yeah, 100%. So we have, of course, money is always great. But then we have junior board members who have been really great and been able to leverage their professional relationships to get gifts in kind. So for example, at Power Play's annual gala, we do auction items, and given where some of our junior board members work, they've been able to get their corporations to sponsor, let's say, a package to the Super Bowl or other things that we can then raffle off. So perhaps it's not, you know, a cash, but that still has a benefit to the organization. And that's one way that we allow people to fulfill their give get.
So, Andrew, is your junior board made up of people who are connected to the firms that are on the governing board, or do people come to it different ways?
Both. So primarily, like we see at NOPE on the governing board, let's say there are roughly 50 or so member firms. Just about each of those will have one board member on the main board. And the goal is to have something close approximating that on the junior board. The junior board has just over 30 members. And so we try try not to have more than one person from any particular firm on either of the boards. And that can it can be a little frustrating sometimes because you have just some amazing people that there aren't spots for. But is just trying to pay respect to the fact that the organization really was started by these member firms.
Interesting. So 30 people on your junior board, that's pretty large. Do you sort of break people into committees, or separate tasks with separate groups?
Yeah, we regularly have more, I would say more ad hoc committees to help work through or think through discrete issues such as event planning for our annual trivia night fundraiser or just other things as they arise. We don't have any standing committees.
So more flexible. Again, we keep
Mhm.
coming back to being flexible for the people. Um, uh, thanks. So, okay, so, and then Sarah, do you have subcommittees that your board members participate in?
We do. Our board of directors annually puts together an annual plan based on where we have board representation of volunteers and sets up committees accordingly. We have New York being our largest city, we have the most committees here in New York, but really representing our initiatives and efforts. And these committees are chaired by our board members with our leadership councils members serving on these committees.
Sense. So you all have mentioned fundraising, and you seem to be, I mean, fundraising for governing boards, which are made up of older people, is occasionally a touchy subject. But it seems like for you all, sort of for the younger professionals, it's pretty much just a natural extension of what you do for the organization. Is that fair to say? Sierra, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think especially as young professionals, you just are going to be in an earlier stage in your career, so perhaps not have as much money to give and get.
Of course.
Would say we really like to encourage the full use of one's network. So me even speaking personally, like I've had great success with being able to reach out to my bosses and say, hey, can you help? And thus far, like I've had full support. So we try to give the junior board members tools to be able to, have those conversations. And then we also have a lot of junior board members who work with corporations that do like a company match. So for example, if your give get is $1,000, you can decrease that in half by just going through your company. So making sure that they use all of the tools at their disposal and making sure that they're also aware of those tools.
Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting observation. From a junior board perspective, there by definition is less of the governance work to do, right? So no, not dealing with auditors, for example, um, or direct supervision of like the executive director, things like that. And so, what sort of remains really is the fundraising and awareness bucket. And I think people intuit that, and so are oddly therefore more comfortable, even if they are not generally like salespeople by their day jobs.
That's great. Yeah, it's sort of a really interesting observation. So, people, I'm getting some questions in the chat, and there is some question about, as junior board members, do you interact with the governing board? Are there opportunities to go to board? What kind of opportunities are there? Let me ask that in a more open-ended way. Sarah?
Yeah, so for power play, I would say our interactions are relatively limited. I think we could honestly do a better job of facilitating more interactions with the board members. As it stands right now, when we have junior board specific fundraisers, then we always invite the board and we welcome them. And then there is also opportunities for junior board members to serve on a committee that's led by the board for our annual fundraising events. So that's another interaction touch point. And then if there are junior board members who express interest in meeting with specific individuals, then we always facilitate those interactions as well.
Sarah, do your board members get an opportunity to interact with the BCRF board members who are?
Yeah,
more-
definitely at events. Our board president also sits on BCRF's advisory board, so they get a lot of interaction both ways, knowing what's happening at BCRF, then also speaking about what the Pink Agenda is working on. So really raising awareness of what we're doing as well. But that I think serving on the advisory board is a key factor in the partnership.
Good to know. Andrew?
Yeah, it's much like power play. There, for the larger events, the junior board members are always invited. When I was a co-chair, we started exploring some more tighter connections, such as sort of a standing junior board representation on various committees. NILPI has, for example, a pro bono committee one that that I participated on in the main board, and there are touch points like that that we found to be really helpful to increase not just the connectivity between the junior board and the main board, but really unlock some of the expertise in the junior board and increase engagement. And so I think the junior board continues to explore ideas like that on how to have appropriate, um, but the appropriate connectivity between the two boards.
Yeah. Are there opportunities to sort of graduate up to the governing board, and is that important to your members, do you think? Andrew? Guys,
Yeah, it's for us, I think it's very organic. Main board members tend to have their seats. I forget what the specific term lengths are, but they're regularly renewed and they're on for a long time. And so you have an interesting scenario where very senior partners at some law firms have been on NOPI's board for decades, like 20 years maybe. And junior board members who started as junior associates are now, meaningfully mid-level or junior partners, but still on the junior board. And so there is some, while there is natural connectivity to sort of move up into the major board, there isn't necessarily an expectation given the length of term for the main board members.
so do you serve on the junior board, and then once you get to a certain level of mature, and you roll off?
Yeah, and I would say not in a formal way. There aren't any policies or protocols that say if you've been on the junior board for X years, or if you are no longer an associate and you've been a partner for Y years, then you're not welcome to the junior board. But I think people naturally just kind of roll off as their careers evolve.
Makes
And
sense.
actually, which is fantastic because it then again, makes room for more junior associates at the same firms to participate.
That's great. That's great. Um, and Sierra, what about you? Is
Yeah.
there an expectation from your members that there's an opportunity to join the governing board? Is that important?
Sure. I would say there's no expectation if there are members who want to do that. That's a conversation that we welcome. I think some of it, to kind of Andrew's point, comes down to timing. We've had people who've been on the governing board for years. So we try to keep that board specifically at a certain size. But when there are natural opportunities for transition, we do like to have those conversations because at the end of the day, we welcome all support for Power Play, whether that be as a junior board member, an attendee at fundraisers, as a governing board member. It's just more the merrier.
That's great. So, and in terms of the service and rolling off of your junior board, is that like Andrew's more organic? Do you have term limits?
Yeah, no term limits at all. We've had people who have been on the junior board for longer than I've been on the board. We have, I would say, people who've been there for 6 years. We have some people who've been there for 2 years. Just at this point, it's more so, I would say, when people perhaps move to a different state, those are more natural transition opportunities, just given Power Play is based in New York City. So that's kind of how we think about transitioning off.
All right. Okay, so we have a question in the chat that I'm interested in asking for what advice you would give organizations who are just beginning and thinking about setting up a junior board. What are the critical elements that you need to build in? Would one of you like to start with an answer to that question? Before I call on you?
I'll start.
Go, Sarah, go.
I think the key factor is having a core group of volunteers who are ready to get the ball rolling, set the guidelines, set the expectations. I think as staff, you can't just say we're going to start a junior board. I think there needs to be interest already in convening that group to put together a proposal and a plan. I think is so important, and have people there to kick it off, because if you don't have that to get things started, may be really difficult.
I think that's really great advice. Do you agree, Sierra?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's good to align as an organization, like what do you plan to get out of a junior board? What is a junior board and having one going to do for the org? I think for Power Play, it's twofold as we've discussed. So the fundraising as well as the hands-on contact with the girls, so that way we can serve as mentors. But I think without that structure, it would be very nebulous and hard to understand what value is the organization getting out of this. So to Sarah's point, just aligning on guardrails. And I would also say like finding a key staff member who can kind of champion and lead or oversee the junior board, at least at the outset when you're trying to build things, to give it a little bit of structure. And then finding someone who can serve as a chair for either a temporary basis or on the long term to help push things through. Because a lot of times young professionals, it's just can be a little bit hard to get everyone on the same page at once. But if you can have one person who can kind of spearhead things at the outset, it can make things a lot easier.
Do you agree, Andrew?
Not having ever started a junior board before, I would totally agree. But
Totally.
yeah, I mean, really recruiting volunteers is a key, obviously the key component, and really setting clear expectations about, the goals and objectives.
I mean, it really seems like the way that you all describe your boards is like input from the members is critical, right? That the staff gives support and along those lines, but really taking into account what the members are interested in, what they want to do, how there's sort of a symbiosis between the board and the needs of the organization. And I think for people who are listening to us now, I mean, I think that's really critical, because where I've seen junior boards fail is the staff kind of gets together and says, okay, we're going to start this and we're going to tell you what to do. And we're going to tell you how much money you have to give, and we're going to tell you how you're going to raise it. And that is not, I think, particularly which you can do with a governing board, because again, they have certain things that they have to do in order to be a governing board. Okay, I just sorry, there was an interesting question in the chat that I think is more specific. Yeah, threw me just a little bit. All right, so we have just a couple minutes here before we go to all of our questions. I think that my question, why don't we just go for questions here? I think that makes sense. There's a lot of them. Many people are really interestingly into what the size of your give get is, or how much money people are expected to raise. So could you speak a little bit to not only the dollar amount, but maybe how they go, like, is that set by the organization? Do you guys come up with it yourself? Or is there sort of a rule of thumb? Sarah, you used the phrase a bunch of times here, give get.
Yeah, so our give get is $1,000. I would say that was coming to that figure was a pretty organic conversation with Power Play. From talking with other junior boards, it seems like that I would say 750 to 2 to 3,000 is within a range of normalcy. I also think part of it depends on who you're recruiting your junior board members from. So if you have a lot of members who are from higher earning careers, I would say going on that higher end probably makes sense. So I would say pretty organic in terms of how we came to the 1,000, but it has seemed at this point pretty feasible for our members to be able to attain that.
Andrew, what do you think? As someone from one of those higher paying professions.
We actually, Nopi has a similar dollar value give get, 1,000 a year. I think we really strive for 100% participation. We don't always get it, surprisingly, and I think that's just the nature of busy young professionals. In a profession where there's a lot of people that there's a lot of churn among lower ranks every year. And then beyond that, really participation in our annual fundraiser as well, although it's less less express like what level of participation in that. We really encourage um, junior board members to either buy teams for the trivia night event, or to get their firms to sponsor or their friends to chip in. And so there's lots more flexibility in that sense. But yeah, dollar value, very similar to PowerPoint.
Makes sense. Sarah, you're a purely fundraising organization. What about you?
So currently our board of directors give get us $2,000, but at our
Okay.
last meeting, a conversation came up amongst the board about how, as we grow as an organization, considering increasing our board give gets, as most of our board members are either reaching 5,000 or even exceeding that level in their give get. So a memo is coming to our board meeting on Thursday to our board give get to 5,000. Our leadership council has a give get requirement too, and that is 1,000, but that is not changing. So that is more online on how junior boards work. So we decided not to change the give get of our leadership council as a whole. But the get is key. It's not all give, which is key. And like Sierra said, in-kind donations count, other services count, whatever you're able to provide. We're not saying you have to give that donation yourself, which is the important factor here.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what I think you've said, each and every one of you over and over again, is flexibility is really key, right? You want to value your junior board members, you want them to be successful, and so you create different paths, using Sierra's word, for them to be successful, to really feel valued by your organization. And I think, for people who are listening to us now, that is so far like the main thing that I've heard from you all is you have expectations, but you also want to make sure that you are mindful of where they are in their life circumstances, and that how they want to be successful in contributing to your organization. Which I think is really important. So, when you think of junior boards, you do think of young professionals, but do any of you have members who are maybe older and who just decided they don't want to join the governing board, and can you accommodate that? Andrew, it sounds like maybe you do.
Yeah, and part of it is in our name. The junior board is called the Pro Bono Advisory Council, which provides just sort of a lot of cover for a range of where people are in terms of career and life stage. We have people that are very junior associates. We have people that are kind of mid-level partners, so people in their mid to late 40s, probably at the top end. It's just quite a broad range, and so there's no hard out. And actually, maybe the average age of our junior board has probably crept up in the past few years. Corey, whether that's a good or a bad thing, but to your point, it's your question. There's quite a bit of flexibility just
Right.
there.
So you've created an environment where people don't feel uncomfortable and feel like they have to age out or turn out. Right? How about you, Sierra?
Yeah, I would say our junior board ranges from probably 22 to 36, with, I would say, less people on that older side. I think part of that is just the recruitment channel. So when you're getting people from friends of friends, they tend to be of a similar age range. But ultimately, being a part of the junior board, there is no age restriction. It's really just focused on what can you bring to the table and how mission aligned you are. But we would never reject anyone because perhaps they weren't a junior professional.
That makes sense. Sarah, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, our demographic, we say, is 25 to 45. We currently have not had any board members who have gotten to 45 yet, so it's just a new place we're starting to get to and having conversations. But our leadership council is open to any age range, even though we call ourselves a young professionals board, a young professionals organization. We are open to anybody who wants to help raise money.
That's great. That's great. I think this is really useful for people to hear. Okay, well, we now have time for, if people want to put some questions in the Q&A or the chat, we have 8 minutes left to answer questions. We answered everything.
There is
All
a
right.
hand raised, and if you wanted to allow that person to speak,
There's a hand raised.
yes.
I don't see that.
And then allow you to unmute yourself, so.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. My name is Dr. Doreen Letsom. I am the president of Unlock What's Inside You Incorporated, where we are dedicated to advancing women of color in Pacific for here in the state of South Carolina that are impacted by psychological incarceration due to domestic abuse. We focus on the change of law here in the state of South Carolina, where we have been plagued for the last 20 years and now have been representing a 71% homicide rate. This has been going on for the last 20 years with no change. We're literally only
So do you
30%.
have a question? Just,
I was
yeah.
giving you a high level overview so
Okay.
that you could be able to answer the question. It would be
Okay.
kind of hard to answer a question without knowing about our organization.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so to your point, the question is knowing a little bit about our organization, how would you suggest? I heard the word recruitment for boards and different things like that. So I wanted to get that information. Knowing our space, because this is what we're doing with our nonprofit, which may be different from you all's nonprofit. That's why I needed to give that context.
Well, I mean, anybody feel free to jump in here, but it sounds like a wonderful organization and a great cause. So the answer is to sort of go back to some of the things that they talked about earlier. Friends of Friends, Facebook. You also have access to our board matching platform and you can put junior board members on that. Does anyone else have any other thoughts? Sierra?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Letsom. I would say perhaps reach out to the local colleges and universities that are in your area. I know when I was in college, I was pretty passionate about working with causes that specifically served the African American community, and a lot of times different universities will have a wide range of extracurriculars that they offer. So finding students who are involved in those types of causes on grounds, I think could be a good way to get budding kind of young professionals, or at least connections to those professionals.
Thank you. That's a good idea because our office space is right behind Florence Darlington Technical College, but it didn't occur to me to go to the student life director and ask. So that would be a really, really good start. And I just didn't think of that until you said that. So thank you.
Brilliant. All right, well, we have 5 minutes left. I wonder if any of you have any closing thoughts or advice for people who want to start a junior board, or start a junior board that they make sure is sustainable and effective. Sierra, you used that word effective when you opened us up. Do you feel like we've covered everything?
Yeah, I would just say overarching advice is to meet people where they are. You may have some people on your junior board who are going to be your kind of fundraising machines and you're going to rely on them throughout the year, but you're also going to have your people who can really connect with the girls and come up with, I would say, interactive programming. At least that's for Power Play. So finding ways that you can individually engage people and utilize their skill set as opposed to a kind of one size fits all approach. That's the way that we've been able to be effective.
Great. Andrew, any closing thoughts? Oh, Sarah, you just unmuted. You didn't mean to do that.
I think, yeah, it is about identifying leaders, and I think it's doing what you all do best, which is really casting a vision for your organization's mission and what change you want to make in the world, and to get buy-in from that from younger people. And hopefully you can create like a culture on a junior board that's actually fun, so that people are on mission together, they have a purpose beyond their day jobs. And it just so happens that that purpose like supports your organizations in its day job.
Fun, critical word, critical thing. Sarah, any final thoughts in our last 2 minutes?
I think with what everybody was saying, I have two things. One being, there are a lot of great ideas these junior board members are going to come to the table with, but ensuring it ties back to the mission. That is key. It should be mission related work. That is fun. I always like the fun part of it, but ensuring that you are furthering the mission of your organization with the work you are doing with the junior board. And number two, a lot of organizations don't actually think about this when creating their junior board is it a way to create a pipeline for future, not only board members, but philanthropists, donors, and how that will affect your organization. It's not just about today, it's about tomorrow and the future of your organization, and how to create that pipeline between your junior board and the future of the organization is something strategic to be thinking about when you are creating a junior board.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. Very much appreciate your taking part of this. For those of you who are looking at the chat, I just put my email address in it. There were a couple of questions that were really specific about law and rogue board members, so please feel free to reach out to me and I can answer those questions. But in the meantime, and also please feel free to shoot any topics that you might want to see from future panels. Because this has been a lot of fun, and I think thank you to our panelists. It's been really useful for the people who have, look at the chat, getting all sorts of thanks. So very much appreciate your time and your insights, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.